Creating custom due diligence criteria in the FI360 Toolkit is a great way to build criterion that replicate a client's current due diligence process, or to create a custom set of criterion that complement or replace the FI360 fiduciary score. You can start the due diligence creation process by going to Settings, User Settings, Due Diligence Criteria. On the criteria homepage, we have our default criterion listed and custom criteria that I've already built in the toolkit. To create a new set, I click on the Go button on the right hand side of the page and begin to select the factors that I want to include in my criteria set from the left hand side of the page. I'll select a few here, and as I select them on the left hand side of the page, I use the arrow button to move them over to the selected factors and thresholds area on the right side of the page. Next, I can change the thresholds to my desired levels, and then give my criteria a name. I'll click the Save and Exit button and continue the creation process back on the main page of the due diligence criteria section. Back on this main page here, with my standard criteria listed at the bottom of the table, I've already updated the factors and thresholds, so I don't need to click on the Edit button, but I can if I want to go and update those values. But the next area I want to jump into is the level of importance. So I'm going to click on the Edit link to update the level of importance. This section of the criterion is where we can customize the due diligence criterion and really add flexibility to your custom process. Looking on the left hand side of the page, we have the selected factors and thresholds listed, and then the next section over we have what's called the number of periods to evaluate. These periods that we're using in the toolkit are the quarterly data periods that you have available to you in the toolkit, and what I can begin to do is customize my criterion and customize it from a historical perspective. So the periods that I want to indicate in the past column here, I can add in 3, for example, 3 quarters, and out of the last 1, or as I change it to 4, I'm looking at 3 out of the last 4 periods, 3 out of the last 4 quarters. And how I'm building my criterion is I want this due diligence process to look and span over a time period of 1 year or 4 quarters, and I want my FI360 fiduciary score quarter to be above or equal to 50 for each investment. So that's how I've selected my periods to evaluate. I can do that for each of the criterion if I want to, or I can just leave them at 1 out of the last 1 to evaluate the most recent period in the process. The next column over that I can work with is labeled criterion importance. There are 2 values in the drop-down, required and optional. If I leave the criterion to be required, as the system is evaluating this entire set of due diligence criteria, if any one item is labeled required and that item fails, then the entire set will fail, and in the watch list process, the investment will be placed on watch. But I can select some of them, or perhaps all of them, to be optional, and then I can add flexibility on the right hand side, where I may say 2 out of the 3 optional criteria need to be met, and adding flexibility that way. The last item we can look at is missing data, and really you're looking at missing data for an investment that just simply doesn't have data in the system. We can treat that as a failure in our process, or if the data is not available, we can treat that as a pass and skip over that factor as we run through our due diligence process. Once I've clicked on the Save button, my due diligence criteria are set in the system.